Okay guys, so this is a video that I've been asked for a few times now, and sometimes it's hard to answer viewers with specific videos just because it depends when this sort of job comes into the shop. But on this particular occasion I have got this Audi in pearl red, and it is a 3-stage pearl red. Now when this actually came in, or when I quoted this job, it didn't actually look like it was a 3-stage pearl. It did look like it was a solid red. Unfortunately it turned out to be a 3-stage pearl. But that now has given me the option to answer quite a regular viewer question on how to paint a 3-stage pearl. Now, most 3-stage pearls that I have done, whites and reds in particular, all start off with a straight solid white ground coat. So as you can see, we've got all the parts here in a standard grey high build primer. These are all prepped and done. I'm just going to give these a nice tack rag down. Now everything already has been pre-panel wiped and pre-masked at this point, before we've actually started any of the panel wipe or anything else, and I've left the booth running for a few minutes just to make sure that the air that's flowing through is nice and clean, and any excess dust and everything's already been flushed out by the filtration system in the booth. So the first stage of this would be to put down your white ground coat. Now on this personally, I would not try and do a clear blend anywhere near where you're going to repair, just because it is a 3-stage. So something like this I prefer to do, your standard sort of like clearing a full panel rather than doing any blends, because there is a slight risk that some of this white ground coat could, or the overspray from it could creep a little bit too far and get near where your clear blend's going to be, and then that's going to cause you issues. But for the first part of painting your 3-stage job, you just want to apply the ground coat and just feather it out nice and light around the repaired areas. Now on something like this bumper corner, obviously we don't need to do that, we can just solid paint this. But where this bumper corner fits on the front of the car, we are going to take a look at that in a minute, and I am going to just make sure that, obviously, even though I've got a repair to do on it, I am going to make sure that the red pearl that we're going to put down just goes that little bit further, just to make sure that where this bumper corner meets where the headlight is, that it's blended up to that bonnet edge as well, and not just the bonnet edge and the wing edge that it's closest to. And I'll talk you a little bit more through that in a second when we get round to that stage. So the first thing, as I said, is just putting this pearl white ground coat down. This just gives us a nice uniform even layer that the factory would have used when this car was new. So they'd have used probably a white primer on this car. They wouldn't put a ground coat down for it. It's not how it works in a factory. It'd have been primed in white, and most cars in the factory are either primed in black, grey or white, depending on the colour. It makes it easier for them in the factory for coverage, and especially on the pearls and that, they try and match it to what gives obviously the pearl the nicest pop, and usually the most even and easiest coverage for the robot systems that are in a factory. But hey, we're not painting in a factory, we're painting in a spray booth under a repair and refinishing environment, so our processes are slightly different to what the guys in factories do anyway. So with the bumper corner complete, we're now going to take a little bit of a look at the wing and the bonnet edge. Now this had a repair to the wing and obviously a repair to that bonnet edge. I have decided to keep the car panelled up just to make it that little bit easier, so I can paint the two panels nice and close together to make sure that pearl's landing the same on both panels, so when obviously this bonnet and this wing close down together, that everything's got the same lay down on it and it's got a nice even colour. Now the repair doesn't go as far as where the bumper corner would actually come the other side of the headlight, so for now I just want to make this grey a nice white area, and as you can see I'm just feathering out the edges of that white area just to give a slight bit of a blended edge on it really, and just trying to get full even coverage over the grey primer. We're not trying to like paint the whole bonnet white, there's no need for that at all. We just want to make sure that that repaired area where we've got the grey high build is a nice uniform white colour, and there's none of that grey showing through, or there's no rub showing through on that area, and especially not having, say, a little patch of red showing through in the middle of that white. That would be quite difficult to colour up, and to make sure that you're not going to try and overcoat this. And this is one of the reasons for using the ground coat, because we don't want to put too much pearl on and start overcoating and changing the colour of the panels. We just want to match this colour in we have to use this white ground coat to ensure that we're not going to put too much pearl down. So we've gone around everything twice now and just give that 2 coats of the white base coat, or the white ground coat, sorry, which has now given us that nice uniform colour over the repaired areas that we can then start applying the red pearl base coat. So this particular red is actually quite a good covering colour, even though it is a pearl, and I'm just going to use the LS 400 to put this down with. It's a really nice gun for doing metallics and pearls with, and just because because of the technology involved in this gun, your pearls and your metallics lay down a lot nicer than I'd say probably 90% of other guns that I've used. It's got a very specific nozzle set in it that means that if it's ran at the right settings, that pearls and metallics will always land as they are supposed to. They're never going to land standing up, so it's never going to look off. So as long as your colour match is right, then you're always going to be, you know, bob on the money really with how you repair and how your colour looks. So for applying the pearl red, firstly I would just try and get a nice uniform coverage. So what we want to do first, same as if we were going to paint any job in any base coat colour, is first we want to just cover up it, essentially where our repaired area was, and in this case the white base coat, and that's where I'm going to concentrate first, is basically getting everything coloured up to a nice uniform and even red, and that's, for me, that's where I start off. Just start off with the basics, just start off with making those areas that we've made white a nice uniform red, and then we'll worry about just feathering the base coat out. Now pearls, this pearl red was a really nice easy red pearl red to blend, to be honest with you. Some of the whites can be a little bit more finicky, because if you put too much of the white pearl over, it can darken the panels quite a lot, so you need to be a little bit more careful with like the pearl whites that go over a white ground coat, because if you put too much on, they can start to turn quite yellow, but just because of obviously the base of the pearl, it's not actually a clean white. Normally they're quite a yellowish white, the pearls, just by the nature of the colour and what's in the actual pearl itself. Now with something like a pearl white, I'd probably mix it 50-50 with thinners, and then I would just dust it on with a light coat, dry it down with the air from a spray gun, and then I'd dust another coat on, and I'd keep going until it all matched in, and then I'd stop. That simple. And I'd literally just do a little feather out for the blend, and that would be it. I wouldn't try and apply it really heavy, just because if you can always put more on, but you can't take the paint back off. And I suppose it goes for the same with base coat, clear coat, anything really. You know, you're better to go a little bit slower and take your time and have it right, and if you haven't quite got enough on, you can always add a little bit. But if you put too much on, you're at the point then where you've got to start the whole job again, or you've got to take all the colour back off, or you're going to have to go and get some white ground coat and repaint it and start again, and then you're just causing yourself a lot of time and aggravation and lost time and labour. So on this front end I'm just showing, because obviously we put this white ground coat down, the last thing that I want is any white overspray over this bonnet, where, you know, I'm not going to put the red. So if there's any dry overspray in the air that's landed on that bonnet on the other side, and I colour up this side of the bonnet and I haven't tacked off the other side of that bonnet, then that white overspray, dust and mist is sat on the bonnet, and then when we come to clear it, you're going to have chances of having white speckles. So it's always good, especially with pearls, to make sure that you do tack in between coats. So again, we're just going for a nice wet coat over this to try and colour this area up. And as I said, now that bumper corner actually comes right the way around to there. Now that's hence why I am going that little bit further around the bonnet with the red really than I need to make sure that where that bumper corner is going to meet that bonnet, that's got a bit of fresh colour on it as well, just to make sure that when I bolt all this together at the end, that where the bumper corner meets the bonnet round that end of the car and this end of the car, it's all going to match in and it's all going to look nice and even, and we're not going to have any issues with colour. Now I have just stuck to the base coat stage on this. I haven't included the clear coat stage just because my GoPro had a bit of a funny one on this day. Turns out I've had a bit of a corrupt memory card, so it keeps on messing up my footage that I've been filming the last sort of week or so. But we have got a lot of footage shot and a lot of new videos on the way very shortly. including actually the Iwata Junior minigun. I really am liking that gun, and I'm probably going to make that the next video that goes up, and I'll put that up this weekend for you guys so you can have a look at the Iwata Junior. Because personally, I do prefer it over my Sata minigun a lot. It's more of a midi sized gun, and it's a really nice painting gun, and I have to say, day to day I pick up my Iwatas more than any other gun in my shop, just because I really enjoy spraying with these. So we've put down, say, well, I think 2 full wet coats over this car now, so we're just going to go around now and put another nice wet coat on, especially this bumper corner, making sure that all these edges have been caught and that all these edges are fully coloured up. You know, because something like this instead of white ground coat, you want to be especially careful that your edges and your little hard to reach areas have been fully coloured. Sometimes it can trick you. You can think you've got it fully covered and you get it outside, and one of these edges can look a slight bit see-through, and then, you know, all that hard work that you've done in the booze for nothing, because you're gonna have to go in there and put another coat on it and re-prep it and re-clear it and everything. And it's obviously, it's not something that we want to do. We want to try and eliminate as much rework in this job as we can, so the more we can get done first time without issues, the better. So we were getting a little bit tight on the actual paint on this, but we did make it through luckily on this job. I think I only had like a little small 1/4 litre mix for this job. So even on the Pearl Red, you know, it's not something that you're going to need to buy a bucket full of paint for. I had, I think, about 100 ml of the ground coat, and then mix that 2 to 1, which was more than enough to cover everything up to white. And then I had a little 1/4 mix of the red, because reds generally, as a rule of thumb, are pretty poor for coverage. So I've got this to the point now where I'm pretty happy that everything's at the stage where it's all coloured up, especially those other 2 parts. So we're just going to go across and give this bonnet another good coat, and then just apply a light drop coat at the same time. So we're just going to give this one wet coat again now, just over this area, just to make sure that it's got a nice uniform coverage. And as I've been going, I have been gently flicking out part of this colour, just to give it that little slight blend, because this is one of them colours that I did actually have matched. I didn't just go for standard shade, I did get it matched just to be on the safe side. With it being a 3-stage pearl, I wanted to make sure that the paint that I was putting down was as close to what is on the car as possible before we actually started to worry about, you know, trying to go like excessively far with blends and that sort of thing. And as you just saw there, I did just flip that last little bit further around that front end edge of that bonnet, just to be on the safe side, to make sure that where that bumper corner meets around that area, that everything's going to be nice and everything's going to be the same shade. So that is it for today's video, guys. I have included some videos, some footage of the car finished, as you can see, when it's all clear coated up, and I have also included some footage of the car finished at the end. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you again soon.